This is our state of the schools for 2024. Very excited to share some great things with you. But before we get started, I'd love to lead us in just a quick word of prayer. Lord, I just thank you for the opportunity, first and foremost, that you've given us here at Dayton Christian to see souls saved, to be able to reach out to a lost and dying world and put back into that world a light that shines in that darkness. And I just thank you for that opportunity that you've given each and every staff member here, every child that's here, Lord Jesus. We know that this is set in time in your plan, and we just want to, agree with that and move forward, guided by the Holy Spirit. Let the words that we say tonight be informative and lift people up in the process. And these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. So I'm going to jump into just a quick thought that I had before I start talking academics and all the things that we want to talk about when it comes to the school. I want to share a thought that's been in my head over the last couple of weeks and it's been real strong that I think is kind of a theme that we're entering into in this part of the year. It's out of Ezekiel 37:7. And it says, "So I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I was prophesying, there was a noise, a rattling sound, and the bones came together, bone to bone." And I guess I just keep on coming back to that verse over and over again. The Christian walk has a lot of arrows being thrown at it right now. But I feel very confident that the Lord is preparing us for such a time as this. And I hear that rattling sound here at Dayton Christian. That's one of the reasons that the Lord has blessed me to be here, and I'm excited to be here. But there's a distinct rattle, which is a combination of everything from a strong staff and faculty that loves kids, a spiritual life that's very strong, parent interaction and parent partnership that is reaching new levels, a board that's supportive, and we're in good financial health, as we'll talk about here in just a second. I mean, these are all things that are coming together, kind of bone on bone, and we're hearing that rattle. What's interesting is if you go just a couple verses down, you know that it says, "And stood before him was a mighty army." And that's exactly what we're planning on doing here at Dayton Christian. We are preparing soldiers for the army of the Lord, and we're expecting them to go out and fight all the fiery darts of the devil and stay those fights on a daily basis. And I'm excited. I know that our staff is excited. And as parents, I know you're excited to be a part of that. We're going to see souls saved through this ministry, and it's a great time to be here, and I hope you feel the same way. So I got a couple ways that you can interact today. I've sent two ideas out. So one, we're going to have a text message that you can send your questions to, a text number, and I'll give you a second if you want to grab a pen or pencil, because I'll give you that number here in just a moment. While we're waiting, I can go into a rendition of "How Great Is Our God" if you want me to, but I don't think many people want to hear me sing. So I'll just hold off on that. That number is 513-655-7438. And we'll throw it up there again, 513-655-7438. That number will come to us with any question that you may have, if you want to throw in a comment as well. If you want to send an email, if that's more convenient for you, we have an option for that as well. I do have a partner this evening that's helping me out. I appreciate Mrs. Thompson. You can send that to J Thompson, so JTHOMPSON at DaytonChristian.com. Again, two ways to get a hold of us. 513-655-7438 is a number you can text into, or jthompson at DaytonChristian.com. You can email your questions. And there might be a lot that I can't get to. I'm going to get to as many as I can. My goal is to talk about a lot of things that we have going on. And the focus of tonight's talk is to share those high priority things that are needed to run a Christian school, whether it's finances that we'll talk about, accreditation, enrollment projections, our strategic plan, tuition reimbursement packages for our teachers and our staff, academic council, and then the academic plan for excellence. Those are all topics that I like to go over and try to share as many thoughts as I can, knowing that we have a limited amount of time. And I'm excited about sharing some of the great things going on here at Dayton Christian. So let me jump into one that's probably a little quicker than the others. And to some people, means a great deal. And to others, they'll understand that we will be able to get this taken care of and move on from it very quickly. And that's accreditation. So we're accredited through ACSI. which is the Association of Christian Schools International, the leading entity when it comes to Christian school accreditation. They also partner with people like Cognia from the public world. That would be who we would be accredited through. So they're doing a great job. We actually have our accreditation this year. We are going through that process as we speak. And in March, we have our official visit. We plan on it going really well. Our board is involved in that. Crystal Cox, Dr. Cox has prepared us. Dr. Griffiths, our special ed coordinator, has also prepared us very well, as well as many other teachers that have been a part of those domains and indicators. So feel very good about where we're at. In fact, we've sent our initial information to them. They also feel very good. So I think we're going to be able to move forward with that very quickly. Why is that important to us? I do want to read a little something that's on the ACSI website. It says accreditation with ACI engages schools in a vigorous, holistic process of organizational appraisal and improvement that engages every school and its constituents. Our program is highly regarded in the Christian world and all member schools. And then I put in there, it aligns our processes and procedures and compares them to best practices that are established in evidence-based methods of instruction. Basically, it gives us a center. It kind of centers us back to make sure that we're aligning with best practices. It compares us to some other schools that they know are doing well as well. And it gives us the opportunity to make corrections where we need to make corrections. And just like anybody else, we want to continuously improve and make those corrections. So I just want to let you know accreditation, which is very important as a public charter school in the state of Ohio, we will be able to meet that need. We believe very confidently that we'll take care of that very soon. The second thing I want to talk about, should take just a couple minutes, is financial health. So we have went a little bit different approach than when I first got here. I'm a guy that likes to look into the future, and you'll see that hopefully in a lot of these next couple comments. So I've prepared a 5-year budget along with our CFO, Tim Johnson. He's done a great job. We also had input from our academic council and our senior leadership team. And we brought that all together and took it to the board and said, here's our first year of that budget. And then here's what we would project as our second year of the budget. And they feel very confident about where we're headed. Now, as a nonprofit, we are, not able to carry over a lot of money from one year to another. So although we're running in the black right now and feel very good about our near future, and then even if you look at our 5-year projection, there's still a lot of work to be done when it comes to things here on the actual school grounds, capital campaigns that we need to do, repairs that have to be done. We have a great facility, and that facility was handed over to us through Bud Schindler and all that. He did all the work behind the scenes and did a great job putting us on this property and did all the due diligence to put us in a good financial state. And the Lord has blessed us here recently, especially to put us in maybe a level where we are making proactive financial decisions rather than reactive financial decisions. But there's still a lot of work to do. We are in a little bit of an older building, so the building's been around for a while. So there's heating and air problems, just like you have in your own residence. In fact, just prior to the winter, I had to replace my whole HVAC system, which was very costly. But we have those items here. We have floors that have to be replaced. We have to make environmental upkeep. So there's some needs in the financial world that we'll probably be coming back to you at some point, and you can decide whether you want to partner with us on those things. And we look forward to giving you the opportunity to take some of what the Lord has already blessed you with and just return it back to Him through Dayton Christian. I want to speak just for a second on enrollment projections. So we're in a very exciting time of growth here at Dayton Christian, and I by no means am a historian of Dayton Christian. I'm still learning myself, but through multiple conversations, I've heard that in general we've doubled in our amount of students over the last probably 5 or 6 years. So Dayton Christian's got very big, very quick. And the first thing I would note to that is I can understand that brings some trepidation to certain families, and I respect that. I come from the public world, so it's a little bit different, and there's really not a lot of options when it comes to lower class sizes and things like that. So I absolutely respect where you're coming from when you have questions about, hey, are we going to be able to keep with all these new kids coming in, lower class sizes? And those conversations are happening constantly through the academic council, which is what we'll speak about here in just a second. So with that in mind, a couple just notes that I'd love to share with you, just to show you God's blessings on Dayton Christian here recently. The first is this school year, so 23-24, we are plus 103 students from just 1 year ago. So we have 103 extra kids than we had in the 22-23 season. What that does for us, obviously, is that helps that financial strength, and it gives us more opportunity to witness to more souls and prepare those soldiers, as we said, to go into battle later on once they graduate. Another very positive note when it comes to enrollment is where we're at right now in the acceptance rate. So we are well above the applications that we would have had this time last year. And we actually just went through our first acceptance round, and we accepted the first 100 students. So that shows you right away that we're well on the way. Now, not every single one of those are converted into a student. We understand that. Our conversion rate is very high, usually around 75% once they fill out an application. And then our retention rate with students currently, it runs around 92% or so. So we keep students once they get here. And usually if they fill out an application, they want to continue with that process and start here as a student. So we're well on our way to hitting a good growth spurt again. But again, I know that has to be managed growth. So there are certain areas that we can accept maybe a few more kids because we have lower class sizes, meaning the class as a whole. Certain classes that are only 55 kids total or maybe 60 kids total. And then there's some other classes, unfortunately, we won't be able to take as many because we want to make sure that we're understanding that we have to do things well slowly sometimes to make sure that we keep all the people that want to come here, and we don't want to put a bad foot forward and then they have a bad taste in their mouth about their experience here and then turn around and leave. So again, that managed growth, that kind of idea that we need to make sure we're taking things with some understanding that parents want to make sure the class sizes are low enough so there's a lot of interaction individually with the teachers and the students. So just know that we're keeping that in mind, but we're also being blessed tremendously when it comes to people that want to come to Dayton Christian. And again, that is all due to the Lord's blessings that He is putting out there for people to understand that we're setting ourselves apart. The Bible says we're supposed to be a peculiar people. And I believe that means in a good way, we're setting ourselves apart from those that are around us and other districts that may be making choices that don't align with your value system as a parent. So excited about the projections of enrollment. It also makes me think that the seat that you have right now is very valuable. And it may be something you want to keep in mind when it comes to the re-enrollment process and making sure that you're staying on top of that, because we want to make sure we bring it back and then have some additional students as well. Next thing I want to talk about is strategic plan. So our strategic plan is our decision making process. It's that, again, that vision, that long term goal set that we want to have. That's something that we have dug into extremely deep. I've worked with our board, I've worked with our academic council, I've worked with our senior leadership team, and I'm really excited about the direction that we are headed in our strategic plan. Now, what does that mean to you as a parent? As a parent, I just want to make sure you know we have a vision. And as the Bible says, without a vision, the people will perish. So maybe there's been times in certain parts of your business experience, or maybe there's certain times in your own life where you felt like things were just decisions were being made happenstance. I want you to know that is not the case here. I've got a great team around us that really digs into the word and makes sure that we're staying with our values. And I want to talk about that for just a second, and just really uses the vision that first through Jesus Christ, through our board, and through that senior leadership team and academic council have as well. What again, how does that kind of play out to parents, or how does that help students? It gives us a bigger vision, a 5,000-foot view of where we want to head, and that helps us with decisions on what will it look like now and what will that affect us maybe in a few years. For example, we may have X amount of dollars to spend towards this project, but if we put all our money towards that, then it may leave us in a worse state later in a couple of years. So having that strategic plan keeps us focused, keeps us in line, keeps us pointed in the right direction. I also want to make sure you know that there's a 3 filter system that we use in our decision making process. I think it's very important that parents understand that every decision we make, and it may sound silly, but from even, what trash cans to buy and what, paint to put on the walls, those are all going through these filters and then has to align inside of that, of course, with our strategic plan. So the first filter is our purpose, mission, and values. Nothing goes past that. If it doesn't line up with our purpose, our mission, and our values, then the decision is stopped, or that particular thing is put to the side, or we're giving it back to the person to say, hey, this doesn't align with what we do. So either you're going to have to make some changes, or our relationship at this point would probably come to an end. And that may be with certain vendors, it may be certain products, certain curriculum and things where we look at and say, you know what, this is just not the same values that we have. We're going to move in a different direction. If it passes through that, then it's got to pass through the strategic plan filter. So we have, campus site plans. We have all kinds of ideas of what we want to see happen in the next, 3 to 5 to 10 years. And we want to make sure that our decisions are aligning to that long-term goal and that strategic plan. So that's filter number two. The third, which I'm going to talk about in detail at the end of this conversation, is the academic plan for excellence. So not only does it have to go through each of those two levels, but if it makes it through those, does it align to what we want to do on a daily basis here for both spiritual life and academics? So we are a Christian school. We believe those two things can align. We believe that you can be strong in your spiritual life, but also be strong academically as well. So that's kind of that filter system. I just want to share that with parents, mainly so we have a plan and we have a vision, and we're looking forward to being able to share as these things start to align to that long-term plan, and how parents can kind of input into those, that you get to be a cog in a very big wheel that we all turn together, and eventually again bring more souls into the kingdom and send more people out ready to minister for Jesus Christ. A very quick note, one that I just think you're interested in, because it was a note that went out to all of our parents once we decided this through the board. The board has been very supportive in a lot of the initiatives and ideas that we've brought to the table through the academic council and the senior leadership team. And one in particular I wanted to note, because I do believe it's an investment in kids, even though it starts in the faculty and staff. So starting already this year, which I was excited that we didn't wait and we decided to just jump right into it once the board approved it. We have a tuition reimbursement program for faculty and for staff. We call the tuition reimbursement program for faculty, and then the career to college for our staff. And we've already had 5 faculty members and 1 staff member take advantage of that. And what that is us investing in them and turning them back to school where they can, get another degree, whether it's their master's or they're going for a specific skill set. Maybe somebody that's in that career to college isn't currently a teacher but wants to be a teacher. They may work here in an aide position. They may work here in a custodial position, and they want to move into a different position, and maybe a more supervisory or leadership role, and they're going to go back to school to get another set of skills. We are investing in those people. Now, what does that mean for you as a parent? Well, if I create a better pool of teacher knowledge, then that's going to be investment actually in your student and your kid. And if I bring a teacher back after spending a whole semester or a whole summer, we'll say, learning and trying to, again, master their craft and sharpen their sword, they're going to bring that to the classroom and make even a better learning environment for the students. So that's kind of how I mentioned it to the board. It's an investment in our people, but it's really an investment in students. So as parents have asked, what are some increases that we're going to see? What are the changes that we're going to have? One of them is we're investing in our teachers for multiple reasons. One, I want to note real quick, teacher retention is very important too. A lot of people understand that if we are constantly turning over teachers, we're having to kind of reinvent the wheel each year or every couple of years. So we want to make sure that people understand, hey, we want you here. Even if we need to coach you up just a little bit, we want you here as long as you're pointing towards Christ in your class every single day. And we have teachers that are doing that absolutely across the board, doing a great job. We have a wonderful staff and a wonderful faculty here. But while we're doing that, we want to send you back and maybe make you even stronger, and then bring that back to the classroom where the students are going to benefit from it. So just a note I wanted to pass on to you, that I love the support we've seen from the board on that, and the excitement that I've seen out of the faculty and staff to better their skills in order to create a better environment for our students. Um, Two last points, and then we'll open it up to some questions, although these will probably be the longest of the 2 points. The first one is our academic council. So I want to share with you what that actually means and why we put that in place. When I first got here, I noticed that a lot of decisions were being made more from an operational team. And one of the things that was noted to me right away was, hey, we probably should take some of these decisions out of the hand of this operational team and put it into a team of educators. And again, this is from the team itself saying, we're making decisions that we want to make sure we're either qualified to do, or if we're not qualified to make those decisions, we need to pass them on to people that are qualified. So right away, we put together an academic council, and that academic council is made of, building leadership, which is our principals, assistant principals, our preschool coordinator, our special ed director, our curriculum coordinator, myself, and a whole bunch of other educators that are boots on the ground in essence. And we put that team together to make sure that they're making the decisions when it comes to academic changes, education choices, instructional practices, curriculum that we're using, really honing them in on making us an even stronger academic institution. A couple of just kind of quick wins when it comes to that. Through that team, we've set a very strong observation and evaluation process in place. We have one in place right now for the faculty. We're continuing to build that for our staff, which is our support staff, like custodians and maintenance people and paraprofessionals and so on and so forth. So our faculty understands what the expectations are now. And I'm going to read just a couple things to you to make sure I don't forget. So we've mandated professional growth plans for all faculty. So there's a goal set for every single faculty member right now, increase the frequency of classroom visits for observation. We're also adding additional increases for the 24-25 school year. We added a biblical integration standard that was written by members of the academic council, amongst other improvements. And some people have asked me, hey, I noticed that you sent out the communication about some major changes that are going on. Darren Gentry is moving from our high school principal to the chief academic officer. One of the things that he's going to own as far as processes is observations and evaluations. I think Derek is awesome. I think he's going to be used in an even higher capacity in this position. And I'm really excited. I told him just today as he was standing in my office, really excited about what he's bringing to the table with a lot of things. And one of them is that he's going to own the observation evaluation process. And now, what does that mean for your student? I think it's very important that we are continuously trying to get better, and we're using evidence-based instructional practices. And I'll talk to you a little more about that in the academic plan for excellence. But I need somebody to kind of own that process, and he stepped up and said, "I'd love to," and especially in this new position. And we're going to get a lot more consistent in what we're looking for, and making sure teachers understand what we're looking for, and then be able to help them grow if maybe they're not in the area they need to be, or to complement them and ask them what resources they need to even take a step forward from where they're at. Also, it goes a kind of circular back to the board to help them understand, hey, we're always trying to get better as a staff, as a faculty. We want to make sure that they know, as they invest in the teachers and the staff, increase wages, create more resources around, maybe better medical benefits, all the different things that we're trying to do to create the best package for our employees. That's not falling on deaf ears. That's being received and then reciprocated with even more effort to make better what's going on in the classroom. Another small little note I want to make as far as the academic council. The academic council, although not regularly seated on it, are teacher leaders and teachers that want to come in and just invest in the time with our academic council on specific issues. And we just had one of those meetings last Thursday. So I'll go all the way back to my interview process. When I started in the interview process, a term kept on getting thrown around to me. It was called academic excellence. We want to strive for academic excellence, and some of even the wording on some of the materials I saw was academic excellence. And I asked, many people in the interview process, okay, can you define for me academic excellence? And I know I was catching them off guard, and they weren't ready for that question. But it's hard to define that unless you sit down and kind of work through what are the things that you're looking for, what are standard practices that show academic excellence. So one of the things that the teachers did just recently in last Thursday's meeting is help us define what that is. So if I come back to you as a parent and say, hey, we are striving for academic excellence, and it looks like this when we get there. Now, get there is kind of a relative term because you're never finished growing. You always want to grow. You always want to move forward. Again, we're going to talk about that in the academic plan for excellence, that we're looking towards continuous improvement. But we need to know where we're at right now and kind of what the goal is. What's our target that we're shooting for? And a definition of that is helpful. We also wanted to make sure that not only our teachers, our staff, our parents know that we tie everything back to the Bible. We want to make sure that people understand our goal is to show that Christ expects us to do excellence in all things. Whether it's, I happen to play drums in my church, whether it's my drumming, whether it's, preaching, whether it's, what we do in the classroom, how we serve food. It doesn't matter what it is. In all things, we should be excellent. So this goes in line with that. The teachers came in, they helped us define academic excellence. And then I said, hey, prove it into the Bible, or prove it from the Bible where we need to be excellent in all we do. And we came up with 23 verses. And I thought that was pretty impressive. It was a great dig by our staff and our academic council, and said, hey, this is what the Bible says. So it's really hard to argue the fact that we should do the best in everything we're doing. So excited about that, excited about the strives and the strive forward, I should say, of what the Academic Council has done so far this year. And you're going to be hearing a lot about that as we move forward in the next year or so. I've got a little time left before we open it up to questions. I want to talk about the academic plan for excellence. So I'm very excited about this. So one of the things, I obviously got into education because I just love education. I love being an educator. I knew in the third grade I wanted to be a teacher. I never wanted to be anything else. Even though my Myers-Briggs told me I was supposed to be a farmer. Don't understand why, but I knew I wanted to be a teacher, went to college to be a teacher, loved it in the classroom, and then just eventually moved into administration. So I say that to say this: I love talking about academics. I love talking about instruction and growth of students and things like that. So, give me a little grace when it comes to maybe being a little louder or fired up. But I really am excited about sharing the idea of where we want to end up first. So, where do we want to end up years from now? And unfortunately, it's going to be years from now. We want to have PLCs, professional learning communities. Now, what does that mean? It means that we need to have grade level teams and administrators making, weekly decisions, bi-weekly decisions, bi-monthly decisions, whatever it might be, through a process to where we can solve any problem for any student. Those grade level conversations are both horizontal and vertical. So years from now, we'll be able to see where we are a vibrant PLC process, professional learning community process. What does that get us? Continuous improvement. If we're always looking at our systems, if we're always looking on how instruction can be better, or this particular student, Bob is struggling. So through our PLC process, we're going to look at Bob. We're going to look at his data map. We're going to see what are the problems that Bob's having, and then we're going to look on how can we solve them. And that's in a team approach. Think about it. If all the fourth grade team get together and say, hey, I know Bob's struggling, and all 4 or 5 of those teachers put together their heads and say, hey, these are the things that have worked for us in the past. Here's how we're going to show that Bob can grow 1 year, maybe 2 years, whatever the case may be. So that PLC community is definitely where we're headed. And we're going to do a lot of work to get there. So continuous improvement is kind of our final goal. How do we get there? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to baseline where we're at now. So this year we're taking in a lot of information and a lot of data. We're asking the teachers exactly what are you teaching. We want to make sure that the content isn't aligned to our standards. So the first question that we've asked, and I've got a couple notes here that I want to bring to you. What do we expect our students to learn? And this comes directly from Richard DeFore. Richard DeFore has 4 questions that we should be asking ourselves as educators to make sure that we are continuously improving. So the first question that we're asking ourselves this year is, what do we want our students to learn? Examples of that may be, what are the learning targets? What are the indicators? What are the standards in student work? And what level of rigor, which is just kind of a fancy word of how much are we challenging our students in their work? So we're baselining this year. We're taking as much information in it as possible from teachers. They have a deliverable that's supposed to be given to us in May, and we'll have that from them. And then we'll spend the whole summer digging into that information and seeing where we go from here. This is a process that's probably going to take us 4 or 5 years. Again, we're going to improve all that whole time in that 4 to 5 years, but to get to PLCs, to get to where we finally want to be in continuous improvement, it's a long drawn out process because we're going to do it correctly. The second question we have to ask ourselves, and probably into next year, is how will we know if the students have learned those things? So the first item is, what are the standards? What are the things we're trying to teach? What are what I call promotable skill sets? Everybody would agree that there should be a certain amount of skills that a fourth grader goes to fifth grade with, or a fifth grader goes to sixth grade, or a senior goes out into the real world with. Those are promotable skill sets. Most of those are allotted in the state standards. Those state standards align vertically, they align horizontally, so that they've done a lot of that work for us. Some of those don't fit us, so we won't be able to use those, but we will help kids understand the counter argument to why those don't fit us. I think it's very important. We're in a world right now that challenges a Christian faith and challenges a Christian to their beliefs. So we can't walk out weak. We can't walk out of this building. We can't walk out of school in general weak and not understand our arguments. So we're going to make sure they understand, hey, this is the reason we don't use this. This is the reason we don't believe that way. We believe this particular way. But when they talk to their non Christian friends in other schools, they'll be able to say, why do you believe that way? Well, you know what? I actually know why. I'll use this verse and I'll use that verse. So having that counter argument is very important and something that maybe we're going to pump up here in the next couple of years. But in that second piece, we need to assess whether they've learned the answers to the first question, which are those promotable skill sets. So we will be doing assessment literacy across the entire grade band from K to 12, and make sure people understand that we're digging into those assessments. We're doing pre-assessments, we're doing formative assessments, summative assessments. We're going to score our assessments. In fact, if you look over my shoulder right there, there you go. That's actually the system that we'll use for assessment literacy. I wanted to write it out so somebody could see it. And basically, it's a scoring rubric to make sure that we are aligning those assessments to our promotable skill sets and our standards. The third question we have to ask is, what are we going to do to intervene when students haven't learned that information? So right now we have certain parameters in place for intervention. We'll probably need to increase the amount of parameters we have in place, and kind of put ourselves out in a wider breadth of intervention than we're at right now, which means it could mean for an individual student going through that process, that RTI process, where they recognize maybe they're a little bit behind. We put interventions in place to make sure that we catch them up at least to where they're supposed to be at the grade level, and then hopefully be able to continue that on. So that third question is, how are we going to intervene? How are we going to work with students that are not exactly where we want them to be yet? The fourth question is, so what do we do with students that have already learned that information? We call that enrichment. So one thing that I would love to be able to do as soon as the Lord allows us to be in this space, is to create more of a stronger gifted program, help our students really excel and really reach higher heights. I think we work with a lot of good stock here. I use that term a lot. We work with good stock, but some students are walking in the door saying, hey, I already know how to do that. What would you like me to do now? And I want to get us to the point where we have preparation already done so we can say, yep, you know what, you're ready to go. Let's move you on to this. There's something, I'll just throw it out real quick, something called the grid method. So the grid method basically is a self-paced, kind of a project learning method that allows students to move as fast as they want through it. And it also has enrichment at the top of that. So let's say we take a student, I'll just say in the fifth grade, and they're able to go through the requirements and to meet those standards, we'll say in the first 6 or 7 steps, and they're moving through those relatively quickly. They'll still have some opportunity at the top where they're really going to be challenged to take themselves to the next level. So excited about all those things. I'm kind of, rushing through it because I want to make sure we have time for questions. But again, it just makes me want to pass on to you that we have a plan. that there is a purpose to our steps that we're taking. It's purpose to the changes that you've seen happen, whether it's in personnel or in our approaches. We have this plan that we want to put in place, and it's going to take us a while to do it, but we're going to do it with efficacy. We're going to do it correctly. And I think you're going to be really proud at the product that we get at the end, which is a student that is very well prepared, not only to move to the next grade, but then eventually move on to their adulting life, whether that's career, college, and what the military, whatever their choice may be. Inside of that, I do want to make sure I put in one other comment. So I believe there's an area that we can grow in relatively quickly. And it's in that middle school, high school space. Some people would say, we just need more choices. We need more choices. Well, I don't disagree with that. There are some choices that we can probably put in place in the next couple of years to give kids more opportunity. But there has to be a system, there has to be an understanding. So one of the things that I'm bringing from my old district here is career pathways. So I want to make sure that students at some point, I won't be able to have this enacted by next year, but hopefully the year after that, we'll start putting this into place. We have one pathway finished already for high school, but we'll have to put that in place in much more detail before we're able to send it out. The point is this: starting in sixth grade, I want to make sure we get an understanding of what students' interests are, aptitudes are. We're to keep that in a digital portfolio. And we'll do that through a system called U Science. It's for those of you that maybe are experiencing it with, it would be similar to a Myers Briggs. It'd be similar to like a DISC assessment that's much more professional on a higher level, but it gets an idea of, hey, what do you like to do? And what are you kind of good at? Maybe even if you don't like to do it. So we collect that information and then we put them through a lot of smaller and faster elective choices in their seventh and eighth grade year. Now, these are all things that will have to be board approved. I've already mentioned these, and we have some supports that have been coming in here lately financially from some donors that are making these more that come to fruition maybe a little bit quicker. So, with all that said, I don't want to go into the granular level, but we will have a plan to take them through sixth grade, gather their interests and aptitudes, take them in seventh and eighth, and introduce them to all these different ideas. You look at the 16 career clusters, the classes that we can provide. We'll put 2 and 3 different career clusters together, and then we will assess at the end of that whether that's something they liked, how well they did, and that will also carry with them all the way through their eighth grade year. And the end of their eighth grade year, our college and career readiness coordinator will send that person into freshman year with a class list that aligns to a career pathway. This one that I have, immediately here to my left is our STEAM pathway, which is in place and something that we're able to publish here as we go into the next school year, and then we'll hopefully start filling in some more of those. What will we need to do to make more options? We'll probably have to support it with more FTEs, which is basically teachers, more teacher equivalency, and have more options for kids to take to make sure that we're strengthening these career pathways and that they can actually leave here with a skill set that maybe some of the people that are in other schools aren't leaving with, that prepares them for either the real world or into college. The person that will be looking over that information, meaning, kind of aligning to our career pathways and looking back to the academic plan of excellence, that will be our new chief academic officer, which is Darren Gentry. So, under the leadership, of course, always of Jesus Christ, our board will help make those decisions and then be our financier, if you will, and then that'll go through our head of school office and then eventually down to Darren Gentry, who will lead us. So when people ask, why did you move this person? Why did you do that? That's another example of someone that we needed to be able to support that. As have my hands in so many things and I want to do all those things as well as I possibly can do them, I need support. And that was one of the areas that we felt we could get somebody that was in house that is very well equipped to support in that nature. So that's kind of the synopsis of what I had planned to say. Before we get into the question, I'll throw 2 small things in there that are more asks or informational for you to help us out in, and then we'll open it up to some questions. So the first thing is we have just published what's called an SGO, or the information on an SGO, a scholarship granting organization. So that allows you as a parent or as honestly anybody, it can be anybody in the state of Ohio, to send to us a donation of up to $750 for single, 1,500 if you're married, filed jointly, and that money comes to us, and then you get that dollar for dollar back as a credit on your state tax as long as you've had that much tax. And most people have had 750 or 1,500 for a couple. It is a huge benefit to us, and it redirects your tax money to us instead of sending it to the government. So, I'm not a government basher. I'm one that appreciates the liberties and freedoms that we're given. But if I can say that they get a certain amount of your money, that makes sense. We would like to have a little bit of your money over on this side. And what that would do is just allow us to make some of these choices again proactively, do a lot of things that we want to see change, especially when it comes to some larger projects in the near future. So you can do that until this tax date, meaning you can actually send that money to the SGO, and that information is being sent to you, I believe, tomorrow in the Friday folders for the elementary, and then that information will go out electronically as well. And you can do that still this year, and it'll count towards this last tax year in essence. So again, some I would be interested in having more information about. You can feel free to contact us here at school, and that information, like I said, will be coming out electronically with a little more detail. And that the last thing before I open up questions is a request, is an ask. So um, we are blessed, and we can afford certain things, but I also am, I guess, frugal enough to ask if maybe somebody wants to bless us with this particular need. Maybe somebody out there knows somebody at a car dealership, and we are looking for a truck. And the reason we need a truck is we had a great blessing from a donor to add a beautiful new trailer for our marching band. And we've had to shift the vehicle that we were using before to that larger trailer. And that was a donation. The vehicle was a donation to us as well. So again, blessed beyond measure. But maybe somebody out there wants to help bless us in this particular need. So maybe you know somebody at a dealership, maybe somebody that you're related to works in the industry of selling cars and trucks. We would love to talk to you about a potential, deal that you can help us make for a truck, probably a 250 to 350 or a 2,500 to 3,500, to make sure that it can take the weight of the trailers and the stuff that we need to move, basically. So, just giving an opportunity out there for somebody that wants to turn around and maybe help us get to that spot. And then I'll stop that conversation. I'm going to look over here to my right and start picking out some questions if that's okay. So, oh, excellent. So I'll start right at the top. So, uniform police back on campus. Great question. So, I actually have a meeting tomorrow. It's been a very unique process. So, unfortunately, our SRO had to step away. And when I was talking to the chief of Miami Township, he had some comments and made me believe that the replacement process was going to be a little bit quicker than it's been. And then unfortunately, we got to a point where we just couldn't wait any longer. So we have put Tim Thomas in place as a safety and security specialist, as a gap fill basically between losing our SRO and hopefully getting another one back. So again, I have a meeting tomorrow with not only, well, that the chief has talked about coming to that, but for certain, I'm meeting with the township administrator. So I would guess that would be his boss, possibly, just to kind of understand what the timeline looks like and what the process is going to look like for us to get somebody. What they're saying to me right now is that they do not have the manpower. So they have a certain amount of people that have to be on patrol. Totally understand it. I actually went through the same thing in Clinton County as my last year was coming on board, before I decided to come here, and they were losing manpower, and we had to hire a safety and security specialist. So I've been through this process before. So I have somebody in place. We can keep that person in place with the board support, and they've already supported us to remain there for the rest of the school year. If we have to look into next year, unfortunately, we took off the table the Montgomery County Sheriff's option. So I was contacted by the Montgomery County Sheriff, Major Roy, who's been great. He's had multiple conversations with me, but he said, unfortunately, with the legalities between dual jurisdiction, that their legal team told them that it wasn't a good idea. area to try to sign it on with us and be our SRO. So they are off the table as of a conversation that I had, I believe it was yesterday. So still on the table is our current solution, which is Mr. Thomas, and then also a conversation planned for tomorrow with a county or the township administrator that I'm meeting with. I've said this in my communication. I'll say it again here. It is my ultimate goal to get a uniformed police officer back on campus, with a squad car right out front, and just the presence that that brings is a great thing and something I fully support. But this is something out of my control because we are in a jurisdiction of Miami Township Police Department. I can't reach out unless it's a private entity, like, similar to what we're doing with Tim, to bring them on, and then they wouldn't have the arrest rights the same as the township would. So we're kind of in limbo to a certain extent, but we do have a solution that's currently in place. Tim's doing a great job. I've actually received a lot of positive comments back about having his presence here, and he is actually, him and I met today, and we're talking a little bit about maybe how he can be used in the drop off and the pickup process, which I know is a pain point for some people. So maybe some traffic direction and things of that nature. And while I'm on that subject, real quick, we did have a meeting with Montgomery County engineers, township engineers about our traffic flow and traffic patterns. So we are working with a great company called App Architecture. They're really, really nice and doing a great job for us. They've come on campus and did 2 traffic studies, counted cars, times. They put time limits on how to get from one place to another. It was awesome. They did a great job. They're working with us on some solutions to possibly being able to house more cars on our campus and get them off the road, so that Spring Valley, Washington Church is not as congested. So all those conversations are happening. Again, some of them are in our control, some unfortunately are not in our control, and we're doing the best we can to find solutions that work for both sides. Just real quick, let me note this for those of you that maybe came on a little bit late. There is 2 options in order to send questions, which we have some time still left, so we'll be able to answer a few of those. 513-655-7438. Again, 513-655-7438 is a number you can text, and that text will come through and we'll add that to the question list. So if you want to take advantage of that, or you can email J Thompson, JTHOMPSON at DaytonChristian.com, and she will send those over here to the computer. So, um, yeah, great question about how are kids who haven't learned and need intervention, as you mentioned, be able to get intervention in an already busy day? That's a wonderful question, and I've got a great response, hopefully for you. We, as the academic council, did our research. So we researched the minutes we spend per day on every content area, including Bible. We also compared those to national averages and state averages. We looked at how many minutes in our total day that we had and compared it to, I believe, 11 different schools, including other Christian schools. And then we compared the instructional days between us and those other schools as well. So some things that we found we may have to address in the future. Not really ready to make any big changes to that. We recognize that maybe we're a little bit low in certain areas, and then we're right in line with others in other areas. So how are we going to get some time back? That's a great question. One, some of it may be efficiency within the day itself. We do a lot of transitioning and moving from place to place. Some of that is within the master plan to be changed to make sure that we're keeping things more appropriately close in nature. In essence, just cutting down time and transition time is going to help with more instructional time or eventually intervention time. Some of that could be solved with a pull-out program. So where we're able to bring students out of maybe certain classes, and help them with their core content instruction and kind of bring them up to a higher level, and try to get that intervention taken care of. Again, I don't want to go too far with this, but it may look at the actual structure of the day itself. So we have certain time for content, certain time for specials, certain time for lunch. And that may bring us to a conversation of, are those the appropriate times to allot for each one of those things? And if they aren't, then how are we going to take time from the area that we can and give it back to intervention or instruction? So unfortunately, not super detailed, but I'm trying to help you understand that that is a conversation topic that we've had quite a few times in academic council, and one that we've done a research and tried to kind of feed into. We also share that information with the teacher group, so they're keeping kept abreast of what we're talking about, and the conversations that we're having, the questions that we have ourselves. Yeah, the continuous enrollment is still into effect, and honestly, the enrollment process is handled wonderfully by Julie Thompson and her team. So yeah, there's no steps that you have to do to keep your seat because of continuous enrollment. I guess I was just trying to note that there is value in that seat because, in a good way, there's a lot of people wanting to get into our facility and want to be a part of this experience. So we just want to make sure people that are already in feel solid, feel good about their time here, and feel like they're being appreciated and being a part of this solution set that we're talking about. But no, there's nothing you have to do specifically to keep that. Oh, okay. So yeah, this has actually been a topic of a lot of conversation today. So the eclipse that's coming up on April 8th, I am not surprised to see this. So, I've got two different ways of thinking about that. I've done a lot of research, I've done a lot of reading, and I guess I'm still in question a little bit about some of the concern. I understand exactly what's going on. I understand with the processes that we'll be in, but I think, losing instructional time is very precious. In fact, we just noted that there are some areas that maybe we're a little low in that, and now we're going to give up more time because an event that is going to happen whether we make any changes or not, and is not a direct danger to us compared to. And this is an exaggeration, but a meteor shower that obviously we wouldn't want to protect people from if it was an atmospheric meteor shower. So, still having conversations about it, open to suggestions, and I've gotten quite a few of those from people on the academic council. Parents have reached out to me. We do have planned right now to buy glasses that are safe for students to wear, and then we would use a portion of that time at the end of the day prior to dismissal that we already have built into the schedule to just talk about the importance of wearing those on dismissal. Maybe a shortened day that dismisses a little bit early could be an option as well. But that the lights will kick on in the parking lot, and those that are driving can turn their headlights on as well. And we understand that kids are going to be kids, but kids can make mistakes on a daily basis, and we don't want any harm to happen to any kid. This day would be no different. We would want to make sure they're safe. So, still a conversation that we're having, still open to possibly making some adjustments. But as of right now, we would have a normal day with just the addition of the glasses as students are walking out to make sure, even if they're tempted to look at the sun, that they would have that protection in place. Oh, this is a great question. Okay. This might be in the category of I might need your help a little bit. So we have a great relationship with Southbrook. I've already met with one of their executive preachers, pastors, and he was great. Had a very open and honest conversation, and tried to make sure that he knows that I'm all about partnership, and we're partners on this land together in essence. And I asked them, hey, I think we could benefit from the gate being open and that connector being used. And that's another conversation I had with those county engineers about, what can we put in place or what can we use that other exit for? They talked about things like signals and roundabouts and things like that, which would all be at our cost and would not be cheap. But in that conversation with Southbrook, they were starting the construction that they have going on right now. So that's beautiful side of that facility. If you haven't been there, it's going to be great. It's going to be a great ministry for them. I believe, and I don't want to speak for them, so please be careful not to assume I'm saying. I believe their plan after that is to address something parking lot oriented, whether it's immediate, whether it's a long term plan. I have no idea. But basically, he said, Matt, I want to work with you. I want to have a conversation about us partnering, but I need to get this outdoor project finished first before I feel I can, bring anything to the table and as far as a partnership. So I said, no problem. And they've obviously started and they're well into that project. So I would think that maybe that conversation is not too far off. But here's where I need your help. We have a lot of people that go to Southbrook that attend Dayton Christian. And there may be one or two people that have the ear of someone that is in the decision making process at Southbrook. So, if I'm not mistaken, Southbrook uses our facility to exit most of their services, especially in their larger audience services, and have been doing that for maybe a decade or more. All I'm asking them to do is maybe reciprocate that on the other side. So if they're going to use our facility and have been for many years, can we start using a portion of their parking lot to help relieve some of the traffic? What that would allow us to do is maybe eliminate that left-hand turn from our exit onto Washington Church and move that to the other side of one of the Southbrook. Again, this is all early in the conversation, but definitely know that that's a conversation I've had and will continue to have, and try to benefit the people that feel like that the congestion in that time period is either unsafe or untimely. There's also another idea that I can't go into too much detail because we're still fleshing it out with the architect, but changing a complete rehabbing of how we drop kids off, and changing our entry only and exit only to dual entry and egress. And then you would bring students into a central drop off space that would go straight from a concrete sidewalk to the front doors, that there would be no lanes that kids have to cross, because we know that's where the danger is. Now, unless the county and the township support us in some changes on the roads, I won't be able to do much about the traffic in the Washington Church and Spring Valley. My hope is to get as many cars warehoused, they call it warehousing, on our property to pull them off of those streets. So lots of conversations. App Architecture, again, great company to work with, has been working diligently to try to come up with these solutions, and we will do that as quick as possible. But I do have to make a note to this as well. And anybody that's in this business will know that I'm not exaggerating this number. To completely redo our parking lot will be a $3 million bill. And I'm not overstepping that. It's going to be $3 million because we have to go all the way down to the base. Our aggregate underneath the blacktop is just washed away. It's bad drainage, which you've seen the big puddles and different things like that. So it is at some point, and I want to reiterate, not necessarily anytime soon, that we will have to take off the whole top layer and start from scratch. While we're doing that, we may direct and give some different, drop off options and things of that nature. But it's going to be a huge bill for us and an undertaking for us for probably multiple years. So when we talk about our financial health, one of the things that allows us to do in that proactive approach is start putting money aside for these very large capital projects, things like parking lots and stadiums and things of that nature. So I'm excited that people are asking those questions, and I wish I had this real flash solution for you that you would say, "Oh, wow, that's going to be great." Again, conversations with Tim, directing some traffic. Is that going to be a benefit? I don't know. We're gonna kind of approach that on Monday and see what he thinks, and maybe go out there and test some things. But conversations with Southbrook have happened and will continue to happen to see if they can help us relieve some of the crowded parking lot. Yeah, it says as a percentage of the annual budget, what's dedicated to faculty, staff, tuition. I'll tell you the dollar figure. So we have a pool of $50,000 for tuition reimbursement for faculty and 25,000 for college to career. So as far as a percentage, that's a pretty small percentage of our total budget, but it's 50,000 and 25,000. So, great question about recruiting teachers. So, definitely a passion of mine. When I started here, I did this symposium on teacher retention before I even got into the day to day, in essence, routines of this position. Because if you look at Dr. John Hattie's work, and if you don't know his work, it's awesome. He's an educator out in New Zealand, and I'm a big fan of him. Number one thing is teacher efficacy and teacher retention. So, if we're looking at how do we have the most effect on our students, is we got to get good teachers and keep them here. And any teacher here that we want them to strive to a higher level, we're going to coach them up and get them there. So what have we done about recruiting? I can tell you that we have 5 recruiting events already on the calendar, and that's a combination of myself, Darren Gentry, and James Holliday, which many of you know from the communication. James Holliday has taken on a new role where he's going to work first and foremost with spiritual life. And he's going to work through alumni relations and really start to feed into our alumni and see if we can make better connections with them. He's going to help us in our fundraising through the advancement process. And then he is going to focus on teacher recruiting. So we want to get good teachers, and we need to go into the colleges and help them understand, hey, this is what our expectations are. This is what our package is when it comes to all of our services together for our teachers, what we're doing for our teachers to make it a great experience here for them. And then once we get them here, we want to give them PD to help them continuously improve and make them feel appreciated. So I just on my strategic plan, I'll give you 3 quick points. I believe teacher retention in this order is supported by these 3 things. The very first thing is appreciation. So you have to make people feel appreciated. And I want to be very clear on this. Not that the position is filled, but that they are there filling that person is the one filling the position. So I could pick out many people as an example, but just grabbing one off the top of my head is Mr. Johnson, our CFO. So Tim has put in countless amount of hours to work through, as many others have as well. And I appreciate Tim. Not that I have a CFO, but I have a CFO who first and foremost loves Jesus Christ and wants to go the extra mile to make sure that we are being as healthy as we can financially. So appreciation to him can look in many different ways, whether it's conversations. We started this Warrior Wow card that I just do a handwritten note, and others in the SLT have done handwritten notes. Academic Council have done handwritten notes, and we put a pin on there. In fact, this pin right here. Um, to just make people aware that, hey, there's some great things going on. I had an incident this week that I shared with a teacher. I had 2 different conversations with parents of kids in their room, in this teacher's room, and they were so just pleased and just very thankful for the teacher and how strong the teacher was academically, and how much they appreciated that there was classroom management and there were rules that had to be followed. And there were 2 completely separate conversations, and they were saying the same things that they didn't even plan it. So what do? We write out a nice little appreciation card. We take it down there, hand deliver, and say, hey, keep doing what you're doing. We really appreciate what's going on. So just those personal touches is something that we want to continue to do. And I think appreciation is the number one thing that helps us keep teacher retention. Number 2 is compensation and benefits. Let's face it. I can pat you on the back all I want, but that doesn't pay the light bill. So at some point, you have to make sure that people are earning what I call a living wage. And probably where we were at even just a couple of years ago, I would think most people would define that as below a living wage. So we have compensated going into next year with a considerable raise for our faculty. Again, feeding into them and saying, hey, we appreciate what you're doing, and we want to make sure you can live off of the money that you're making here. And then the third thing is, again, back to the without vision, the people will perish. We need to make sure our people understand that we have vision and that we have a plan in place and that they are a part of that plan. So very important, very good question. Yeah, I kind of addressed this already. I'll just touch on it briefly. I understand there is a lot of change that has been, we'll say, implemented going into next year, both in high school, middle school, elementary. I get that, and I understand the word frustration is probably accurate for a lot of parents. I wish I had this really, really great answer that makes you feel a whole lot better. I hope that many things that I said help us build into why those changes were needed. But I would bring it down to this. Whenever we have new leadership come in, obviously there's some changes that are probably going to occur because that leader sees things a little bit different than the leader prior to. Plus, hopefully, we through the academic council have recognized areas that we want to improve on as quick as possible, and we prioritize those moves with in-house people because we know what we're getting out of them. We know that they have a skill set, and maybe that skill set they have can even be better used in these new positions. How do I secure people that are going to be in place for more than 1 year? Honestly, I know it sounds like a cop out answer. I got to trust the Holy Spirit on that. Now, I personally have went out and tried to recruit, educators and people that we think would be good administrators, because I want to make sure that we have a great pool to pick from. We have some internal candidates. We'll have some external candidates as well. It's my job to work with our committees to hire those people. One will have a teacher committee, and we'll have a senior leadership committee, and that person will have to go through both of those, including presentations and some things of that nature. By going through that process, that hiring process, and having all those inputs put in place, my hope is that we're getting people that we would have for multiple years. Once we get them here, those same things come into effect. How are we building into them? How are we appreciating them? How are we supporting them so that they want to stick around? So sorry I can't get, relieve any frustration for you, but know that everything was done in prayerful consideration. Every change that you've been told about, every move that we make, I can promise you this, it starts in prayerful consideration, whether that's through our board, whether that's through the head of school office, whether that's through our SLT or academic council. It is steeped in prayer. Just want to let you know I'm down about 14 minutes because I want to be respectful of your time. I'm going to try to answer a few more questions, and then we'll have to hold off on the rest of them and come back to those. So, um, yeah. Is there room on the campus to hold the enrollment growth? Are there plans to expand the facilities? Great question. So, yes, there is room. In fact, the board just approved $450,000 worth of renovations to change storage spaces and unused classrooms into usable classrooms. So, we can probably house up to 1,500 kids pretty comfortably here. Now, there are some big things that have to happen to get to that number, and we'll do that strategically. And we have all those plans in place through our campus master plan. One of them is we have to look at fire egress from the third and the second floor. So you can have a certain amount of students on those floors. And then once you reach a certain point, and they use measurements and different time allotments and things like that, we may have to expand our staircases if we want to get above probably that 13, 1400, especially if the growth is in those latter grades in the second and third floor. We're not quite there yet. It's a conversation that we're having with the fire marshal to make sure we're staying within the parameters, but safety is obviously right at the top of the list, and making sure that we'll be able to get our kids out safely if something were to happen is very important. But we can grow for a while, actually. So we have unused rooms. We have a kind of a renovation of spaces that we'll be able to do. We're adding some offices and some empty areas right now. We're actually using part of our rear kitchen area. We have a huge kitchen. If you've never been back there, it is enormous. That can easily feed 2,000 people with no problem. So we're taking some of the unused space there, and we're creating more storage to be able to make these rooms available for students, because we need to move those things out that are in storage currently. We probably need to put an outside storage unit at some point to build even more classrooms in-house. I want to broach a subject here. This isn't me asking for anything in particular, but the question was asked. I want to make sure I'm very clear. One of the things that's going to stop us from growing is gym space. We have one gym, and I'm blessed that we have that gym. In fact, I understand that before 2019, we didn't have that one. But we need more gym space for multiple reasons. One, we are housing PE classes for elementary age students in what we call the faux gym, which is basically a long gathering of classrooms in a padded room with just regular height ceilings. And it works well to a certain degree. But I'll just be truthful with you. That's not the experience I want kids to have. I want them to be in a full size gym. So, one of the things that we've done going into next year, the summer, we'll see this project come to fruition. We're actually going to redo the way that the AC works in the Warrior Center, and we're going to put it down the sides and not the one big pole or one big pipe in the middle, which also would be a benefit to our volleyball team as well. And then we're going to put a curtain that will be able to come down and separate that large space into two smaller spaces. I've already talked with our PE teachers. They like this idea. They feel they can use that space. But even that's going to be a Band-Aid. At some point, we're going to have to build an auxiliary gym space. Now, what I've thought of, and I'm going to rephrase that, multiple inputs, that architecture and different people, coaches and so on and so forth, is a performance center. So I'm a big fan of athletics, but I'm also a big fan of like theater and fine arts. I love plays and musicals and things of that nature. And it'd be awesome if we had a space that could be their own performance space. Now we could probably couple that with another gym facility and kind of put it all in one space. We've went so far as to actually getting plans for that, but I'm sure you can understand that the price tag is quite verbose. So we're looking at that as one option of many things that we want to do, but that would have to come into play for us to expand more than probably that 1,300 numbers is kind of a catch-all around 1,300, give or take a few. Will the career pathway plan include additional AP courses in the future? Yes, as well as additional CCP classes as well. So I definitely think AP is a great structure and something that has been supported here and will be supported for many years. But CCP also gives us some options as well. So we're looking to partner with a couple additional CCP institutes, some more that are faith-based. I'm excited about the opportunity to partner with more faith-based institutions to allow for more CCP classes. So yes, that will be a part of the pathways moving forward. Do you feel the athletics is important to promoting DC? I think any full service school has a strong athletic program. And with the participation rate that we have here, it is an expectation that our students have and our parents have to have a strong athletic program. I just talked to Ben today. Many of you are aware through our press release, we hired a new football coach, someone that, is definitely excited about being here. I got to talk to him yet again today. So, making sure that we recruit and find good coaches is very important because it buys in or helps people buy into the whole process. So I do think athletics are important. I would, and I'm going to choose my words here carefully. A strong academic plan can go no matter if you're successful on the field or not. So I think athletics is great. I coached football for over a decade. I coached basketball. I did all the. I coached fast pitch softball. Don't ask me what my record was. It wasn't good. But my point is, I love athletics. I was an athlete myself. But if you have a really strong academic program, that's going to be the draw for a lot of parents to say, hey, DC's doing something a little bit different here. Now, if you have success on the field, that's great. And having our names in the paper for winning championships and things like that, awesome. What a great experience for our students, support it 100%. You've probably seen me at a game or two, and I love to be wild and crazy and scream and have a good time. Love that part of it. So I believe athletics are important. The answer is yes. Do I feel like we need to also make sure we're strengthening our academics at a faster pace than what we're moving our athletics? Yes, I do. Because that's what is going to be used by most of our students moving forward. I can go over the percentages, you know them already, that most students do not turn into professional athletes. They go into career pathways to help them, in the future and create a life for them and their spouse for many, many years. And, that's definitely what we want to be strong at in addition to also having a strong athletic program. How about food service? Yes, great question. I will say gladly that we have seen a change already. Dr. Crystal Cox, who runs many things, she is a woman that spins a lot of plates, is in charge of our food service, and she is the liaison between us and WG Grinders. I thought I'm a transparent person. I ask you guys a lot of questions as parents, and I use that information. So we collected all that information, we took it to WG Grinders, her, Dr. Cox specifically, and sat down and said, here's how you're scoring. And if you have this score in any other thing in life, I don't think you'd be too happy. So if your marriage was a 2.8 out of 5, you would want to fix your marriage. So in a very nice way, we said, hey, what are we going to do about it? And they addressed it immediately. So they changed some leadership over the cafeteria very quickly. And then they started looking at more healthier options, portion sizes, and then myself and Dr. Cox, along with one other person, have a meeting planned with them next week for them to show us all these changes that they made. So I will say the response has been very positive. And I've used the information that was given to me in the head of school update to kind of start those conversations and kind of use that as a jump off point. There's still a lot of work to be done. we need to make sure that we are getting people through efficiently and making sure we have plenty of choices and they're very, very economical. So we're working on those things, but having those conversations are very active right now. So, are there any security upgrades still needed in the school? Yes, I think there's a few items that we're going to address here pretty quickly. I just wrote a grant, and hopefully, it'll be given to us for a device that'll be a check-in device. It's called School Safe ID, or some people know the Raptor system. Basically, what it does is it scans driver's license for Schedule A felonies to make sure that people that are picking up kids are the right people. It also gives us the opportunity to create flag lists where when somebody tries to sign in or use their license, that would also stop, and that message would come up on the screen of one of the ladies there. So it's a process that we'll probably have in place. I would say in the next couple of months. My goal is to have that in place in the next couple of months, which, by the way, might make it just a tiny bit longer to pick up your kid because you got to do the swipe and you got to sign the kiosk there, and then that also will change the way our visitors are able to sign in, and it will give them a badge with their picture on it. I think that's important. We have the circle picture, or we have the circle badges right, or circle stickers right now that say visitor. That's great. That'll work for now. But it would be a little bit better if a teacher were wanting to stop somebody that's a visitor and they can actually match the face on the badge. So that's one item. Obviously the SRO we already talked about. We're going to continue to use the ballistic film in certain areas, and we've done a lot of work on that so far. We've increased the amount of cameras, and then we've actually gotten higher resolution cameras as well, and took away any blind spots that we had. I want to say our camera count is up to 147 or maybe around 150. And for a size school that we are, that's a lot. So we're able to do that, and Tim is monitoring those, so that helps us with those. So lots of security upgrades still to be done because we always want to get better at that. Many people have probably seen the numbers on the outside of the windows. That's for a response team, whether it's fire, SWAT, EMS, that can come in and get to that room as quick as possible. Our fob system is a little bit older. So we'll be looking at that with some upgraded cameras again for that, and so on and so forth. So, you know, not one particular thing, but probably a lot of smaller, granular level things that will all add up to a more secure environment. How big of a priority is STEM, and what is being done to improve the footprint from K to 12? So, very excited about talking about that. So, let's go back to the conversation about the academic plan for excellence. When we get them in sixth grade, going through those, the U Science, which shows them what they're excited about and what skills they may have. The classes that you're going into in seventh and eighth grade are very STEM oriented. So, design modeling, there's a robotics class, a drone class, an aeronautics class, biotech engineering, medical detectives. These are already classes that exist. It's actually a company that you can purchase the materials from. It's called Project Lead the Way. So it's a very important part of what I feel is the future of us here at Dayton Christian, to make sure kids have the opportunity for STEM and computer science at the high school level. And we have had people recently reach out to us about how can they support a computer science pathway at the high school, whether it's financially or through their own skill sets, and sharing it with kids. So yes, STEM is very important, and we are actively pursuing more opportunities for kids, even at the lower grades, to get more STEM education. With just probably a minute left, I'm going to grab one more question here. Um, Will student teacher ratios stay strong as enrollment goes up? Is there a cap to class size? So I don't use the word cap. So there's class size targets. We want to make sure that we're staying in a certain target area, because there's going to be unique situations of kids moving in, and kids that transfer out and leave a space open. We're going to hire teachers that are going to bring their kids here, so we have to leave a little gap for that as well. So that is something that has been supported by the board. I've brought to them how many people we feel it's going to take in order to take on all these extra kids, and making sure that we've given ourselves enough space in the budget to hire teachers. Again, knowing the class sizes are important to people, and I do feel they are important. But I had a parent and a staff member reach out to me. When you look at the overall importance of class sizes, there is some efficacy there. They are important, but there are some other things that we can do that are research based and evidence based that can have more effect on students learning than just being in a smaller class size. With that in mind, it's definitely a part of conversation, numerous conversations, and the teachers needed to support that are one of the reasons we have these recruiting events already on the books, 5 strong already, and we'll probably add to that as well. So I'm going to stop there. We've hit 1:30, and I told you that that would be the time allotted for this event. So one, I appreciate, at one point we had about 230 people online with us, and we appreciate all of them joining. We'll take these questions and kind of work through those and see if we could get some responses together. Or the next time we come in front of this audience, maybe we'll be able to start with those questions and continue this conversation. So first and foremost, I wish you nothing but health and happiness, for God to bless you in everything that you do. Thank you for your support of Dayton Christian. We're going to sign off for now. We'll be talking to you soon. Thanks.